Mission Critical is brought to you by General Dynamics Information Technology, solving the access control challenges from point of entry to point of identity using proven ID solutions.
When disasters strike, chaos ensues. Organize, respond, verify, and control access with CORESTREET. Critical information for critical decisions.
Overture Card Systems, the leader in highly secure smart identification documents for America and the world. Overture, Smart ID, Smart Choices. Dayon Systems, the leader in mission-critical credentialing and identity management. Dayon has come together with industry partners to provide superior access control, identity management, and interoperability through the First Responder Program. Gemalto Card Systems, security to be free.
It was overwhelming, that horrible day in September 2001. The worst terrorist assault in America in our history. Listen to this story, because the people who tell it are now involved in dramatically improving the way we respond to even the worst imaginable crisis.
On September 11th, 2001, when the aircraft hit the Pentagon, impacted the Pentagon, the aircraft actually flew over this facility, almost clipping a radio tower which is on the property. People at this facility who happened to be outside at that particular time actually saw the plane tip its wing to make a maneuver, could actually see into the cockpit.
This man was even closer. He's the director of the Pentagon's Anti-Terrorism and Force Protection Directorate.
We had several first responders responding to the building. We had several individuals trying to evacuate the building. At the same time, we also had to keep mission capability because this is a National Military Command Center.
It's the #1 command center, in fact, and yet people needed help, which came from every direction. But who were they? Should they have access to the Pentagon?
When you see a fireman in a fireman's uniform, you automatically assume that that person has been trained and is certified to be a fireman. You see someone show up and say, I'm a doctor, you automatically assume that that person would be a doctor, otherwise they would not be on the scene. We found later on that that may not have been the case on 9/11 with all of our first responders showing up here. So we had a hard time for about the first couple of days of actually identifying, positively identifying true first responders.
Next door at the Virginia Department of Transportation, also a state police facility, they had the same problem.
The credentialing process for this facility was non-existent, and the military asked if they could take over this facility for temporary command and control, which certainly we participated in. Just had no credentialing aspect at all, though, at that time.
So what did the crisis managers do at this vital transportation command center?
They just had to forego the credentialing aspect and just allow people in.
That was 9/11. This was Katrina. The 2005 Gulf Coast Hurricane Katrina was the largest natural disaster ever to hit the U.S. Civil disorder was a major concern. Getting people to evacuate was an enormous challenge. Getting first responders in to help them was another big problem.
During Katrina, we had trained doctors and nurses that while people were trying to understand if in fact they were a doctor or nurse, for 2 and 3 days we had a group from Maryland that were driving boats, okay? Because someone couldn't make an informed decision based on the information provided that they were in fact doctors.
First responder, in my words, would be those that we would traditionally talk about as law enforcement, firefighting, and the more astute would say emergency management services and whatnot. But that really isn't the world of first responders. What Katrina really taught us was that world of emergency responders is a world that includes the telecom industry, electric power workers. If they don't have the credentials to enter into the scene and be trusted, we'll never restore what's now where the chaos is back to the way it was.
It was the same at the Pentagon. Valid first responders could not get in.
We had first responders because of certain security countermeasures that had been implemented that could not actually get to the scene because we could not positively identify that they were true first responders.
This happened in the Pentagon incident. It has happened in subsequent incidents, such as Katrina. It happened in the Mura building bombing in Oklahoma City as well. Significant delays, up to 72 hours to get people in.
The problem wasn't that federal employees, military personnel, and first responders didn't have credentials. They had lots of them.
So you had individuals who had to cross multi-jurisdictions, and they're running around with probably up to 17 to 25 badges, or as few as 5 to 7 to 9. But they have multiple badges for the same identity.
In addition to all the different first responder credentials, they offered differing types of information. Many were meaningless to those trying to control perimeter security.
We took some surveys of how many infrastructures we were looking at, how many different IDs were people looking at, and listening to the police community and listening to just the folks who ran the ports. It was pretty clear that we had literally 1,000 or more different identity systems that didn't talk to one another, or talked to one another on a limited basis.
The head of emergency management at George Washington University paints a vivid picture of what he faces.
If I get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning and something has happened, and it's broadly based, and I need to come to the university, the jurisdictions I have to pass through are manned by the Fairfax County Police, the Fairfax City Police, the Virginia State Police, the Alexandria Police, the Arlington Police, the U.S. Park Police, the State Department Diplomatic Security Service, the Secret Service, in some situations the FBI, the Metropolitan Police Department, and our own university police people. That's a lot of folks in a 19-mile trip in an emergency. Having to stop for any or all of them, I need to be able to prove simply who I am and why I need to go in.
It is well known that in Washington, D.C., security is the top concern.
In this region, we have over 231 federal departments and agencies. We have roughly 340,000 federal employees, roughly 28,000 in the legislative branch, about 1,000 in the judicial branch. We have 19 governments. We have multiple regional organizations like Transportation or Airports Authority, okay? And we also have, we're the host country, host city responsibilities for 3 international bodies: IMF, the World Bank, and the Organization for American States.
Washington, D.C. is not alone in addressing such security concerns. It's everywhere in the U.S., at over 1,000 airports and hundreds of ocean ports.
In the maritime environment, over 350 facilities that are called ports in a directory. Within a specific port, you may have several dozen separate facilities under different management, under different control systems.
Before September 11, 2001, this chaotic access and identification system seemed to be all right with most officials.
At 9/11, most communities, towns, cities, there was a normal routine. There was a level of safety and security that the worst thing that might happen could be a bad car accident, maybe something that happened at a local plant, maybe a bad fire.
We face new challenges now. We need new ways of organizing and managing our response.
What Katrina taught us, what 9/11 in New York taught us, what 9/11 down here taught us, is that we need to enter the world of where utility workers, electric power workers, the telecom industry, volunteers come to the scene, not into the scene, at the perimeter of the scene, so that the incident scene commander knows that he has this capability on site. They really can prove who they are, and they also have an attribute assigned to them that he can utilize immediately to bring the restoration back to the chaos.
On August 27, 2004, President George W. Bush signed HSPD 12, establishing the requirements for a mandatory government-wide secure common identification standard known as FIPS 201. providing guidance for implementing the HSPD 12 requirements.
Homeland Security Presidential Directive number 12 was issued in order to lay out a common credential for all federal employees and contractors that work for the government. So the intent was to have something that worked across the entire federal enterprise and that would be recognized by everybody as a federal credential.
The idea is to apply a common identity system, one that everybody understands and trusts. The desire for a trust model was prevalent. One government employee attending a meeting in another government worker's office building could often be heard saying,
"Wouldn't it be really great if I could come over and just be treated, I mean, I am a federal employee, you're a federal employee, couldn't we just treat each other and trust each other just like we were, all part of the same organization?" So that's how it started out.
What we're doing today is a random anti-terrorism measure. Today your vehicle meets the criteria. It's what I need for you to do.
At the Pentagon, security is civil and polite. But tight security means the Pentagon police need to know everything about each visitor. There is one aspect to this Pentagon security stop that is new. The visitor to the Pentagon gives the officer his FRAC card, which the officer puts in a handheld reader. The visitor's PIN code matches security information embedded in the card and information accessible in the handheld unit. The Pentagon police have rapidly and accurately authenticated and cleared the visitor because of a new credential system. After the 9/11 experience, the Pentagon moved quickly to develop a system like this for qualified visitors and first responders.
So we had to independently go out and try to see if we could come up with some form of identity verification to allow first responders to respond to DoD buildings within the National Capital Region.
Work at the Department of Defense and throughout the federal government often crosses government lines and involves all 19 governments that comprise the National Capital Region. Tom Lockwood, director of the NCR for the Department of Homeland Security, heads the office that is coordinating this effort. They are introducing an identity card that provides everyday access to government facilities, but also fulfills the needs of first responders and incident commanders during an emergency.
The card that you wear day to day is the card that you're going to use on the day, okay? It's going to be portable. It's going to allow you to use the same card that you use normally to get physical or logical access to your facility, to your computer system, to be the same card to let someone make an informed decision. Should you cross a boundary? Should you get into a particular building or not? Because the incident commander is going to own that incident site.
We do have a technology in place, and we do have a process in place that's happening right here in the National Capital Region. And you can use this electronic identity management process for interoperability with the federal government, state and local jurisdictions, and also the private sector to achieve multi-jurisdictional interoperability in the time of a crisis. And that's important.
Virginia representatives quickly recognized the impact of an interoperable trust model and became a big part of the testing and rollout.
First responder initiative in the Commonwealth of Virginia is an effort that is currently underway in cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security, the District of Columbia, and the state of Maryland to get first responders issued a standard credential that will enable them to rapidly integrate into a response mode for any kind of an emergency situation.
The First Responder Authentication Credential, or FRAC concept, was thoroughly tested in an exercise called Winter Fox in the Port of Baltimore.
The Winter Fox interoperability demonstration was a demonstration that wanted to show the interoperability of the card. Cards that were issued by different agencies at different levels of government, how they could respond to simulated incidents throughout the region and actually insert their credential into a handheld reader that would be presented back to the to the cardholder to present a PIN and give a relying party the confidence that the person is who they say they are.
The FRAC card. Some call it a credential because it's so much more than a card. It's based on the SMART card. SMART because it has a 64-byte computer chip embedded on the card, the gold square on the face. The gold square includes the contact points used by card readers. The card also has a radio frequency capability, so users can wave it within 4 inches of a reader to obtain access to buildings. And some versions still bear the familiar magnetic stripe, so they can be integrated with existing systems during a transition period. As frac cards, the agencies of the National Capital Region program them with photographs, not just on the face of the card, but also programmed into the card's computer chip, along with the cardholder's fingerprint. Other biometrics can be included, like facial recognition, voice prints, iris scans, and handprints. These biometrics are not yet part of the NCR program. The FRAC system uses a PIN number for individual verification. The process of issuing a FRAC card is more complex, but the benefits of the card are vastly greater.
This is more than just going in for a driver's license where you present some documents to one person and you leave with a laminated card. This is taking similar type documents to a driver's license, but having certain people with certain roles that are going to scrutinize over what you've presented, making sure it's not fraudulent, that this chain of trust that we talk about is based upon a number of different steps for you to actually receive the credential and for it to mean something.
The computer chip can be loaded with a wide variety of information. A first response manager can learn a great deal instantly when someone arrives at the scene of a crisis.
Are they undercover? Are they hazmat certified? Are they medical certified? Are they EMTs? Are they doctors?
The FRAC card system is designed for updates every day. Handheld readers and other reading devices receive the latest download each day on each FRAC cardholder's status and validity.
We've tied this into every 24 hours to have these handhelds updated, and now we've tied them back into SATCOM units, because if we have another Katrina, if we have another 9/11, what we think of as cell phone coverage and whatnot, we will not have for a very good period of time. That's why this works, because it gives you the ability to work this credential and have it trusted in a COM in and a COM out environment without COM.
The FRAC system is interoperable. Of the thousands of agencies that are expected to issue them, all can read and understand each other's credentials and authenticate the cardholder.
I think that one of the hopes is that all of those different entities, whether they be locally owned or whether they be a state, an adjunct of a state agency or local agency, would all participate in this because it not only gives them the first response credential to be able to use, but they can come back and if their own organization were to adopt some of these, they can also bear the fruits of a standard identity within their own organization.
This is a major breakthrough in efficiency and response during an incident of any type, be it a hurricane, a major fire, an attack, any place where it's essential to put up boundaries to control who should be inside and who must be outside, and to know who's gone in. This system is going to support us and support us well.
The work of the local, state, and federal agencies in the National Capital Region program is an incubator for what they anticipate will be adopted across the country.
We are proving out once and for all here within the National Capital Region, not the fact like a PowerPoint presentation, and not the fact of something that's like in a calm scenario, but in an actual real life chaotic type incidents where there's no communication. How is it that we will behave and go through the business process of applying this technology?
Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia are proceeding along parallel paths to issue credentials to their first responder community.
The long-term implementation schedule is to have it throughout the state for all of our first responders.
The first responder authentication credential is built on the concept of trust.
The basis for any of this is in trust. Reagan had this term, trust but verify.
You are who you say you are. Now, can we make an informed decision of what I give you or you give me?
If we end up having a first response requirement in this country, it's not just the federal government that's going to show up, it's everybody.
The first responder authentication credential, critical to the mission of the U.S. first response community. For more information about the FRAC card and the Smart Card, please visit www.smartcard.gov.
Mission Critical was brought to you by General Dynamics Information Technology, solving the access control challenges from point of entry to point of identity using proven ID solutions.
When disasters strike, chaos ensues. Organize, respond, verify, and control access with CORESTREET. Critical information for critical decisions.
Overture Card Systems, the leader in highly secure smart identification documents for America and the world. Overture, Smart ID, Smart Choices. Dayon Systems, the leader in mission-critical credentialing and identity management. Dayon has come together with industry partners to provide superior access control, identity management, and interoperability through the First Responder Program. Gemalto Card Systems, security to be free.